A very good afternoon to you. Welcome to the West Ham Voice on Sunday afternoon. I hope you're all having a pretty decent weekend. Hopefully the result, all right, we didn't win, but hopefully the result or the performance might have given you a bit of a pick-me-up against Bournemouth at the weekend. Look, if you're new to this channel, first time you're watching the West Ham Voice, or if you've watched the West Ham Voice before but yet to become a subscriber, please do subscribe to the channel. Costs nothing to subscribe and all the content is free. And if you enjoy the content at the end of the video, please, please, please hit the like button. So it's fair to say that this season has been frustrating, not only for West Ham fans, but for some of West Ham players as well. And I guess none more so than Niclas Fullkrug, who's likely to have been more frustrated than any of the others. You could see from the joy in Füllkrug's celebrations, and dare I say, a bit of relief from him and from the fans when he smashed home that headed goal to get West Ham United back on level terms against Bournemouth on Saturday. Now, Niclas Fullkrug has kind of divided opinion amongst West Ham fans. Some have said he's a massive waste of money at the price that we paid for him, at the age that he is. And given his history of injuries, he's been a big waste of money. And others have suggested that we actually haven't seen what he can really offer West Ham. We haven't seen the best of him. And I guess in some ways, both sets of divided fans are kind of right. Füllkrug has only played 538 minutes of football this season. Of those, 449 in the Premier League. Now, 538 minutes is 2 minutes short of the equivalent of 6 games. And yet, in those equivalent of 6 games, Niclas Fullkrug has scored 3 goals and he's made 1 assist. Now, I do wonder, that's not bad, really. It's a goal every 2 games. I do wonder where in the league we might have been had Niclas Fullkrug not picked up the 2 long-term injuries that unfortunately have kept him out for most of the season. His experience when coming on in the 54th minute against Bournemouth was there for all to see. He played 36 minutes plus the 6 minutes of added time. And in that time, he was for me, and probably for many of you, the man of the match. He bossed the front line. He created all sorts of problems for the Bournemouth defence. He challenged every ball, whether high or low. He got the rest of the West Ham players out of their inertia, out of their slumber, and actually got them involved in the game. His influence managed to wake up Jared Bowen, who all of a sudden started to run at the Bournemouth defence. Okay, moving out to the right rather than being up front helped in that as well. It gave Lucas Paqueta a target, which he was trying to pick out at every opportunity. It gave the likes of Paqueta and Kudus more space, more freedom, because it meant that the Bournemouth defence had somebody else to worry about, which opened up a bit more space for Paqueta and Kudus to run into. And that's a goal that Kudus made for Jared Bowen, for me, should have been the winner of the game, and we should have just held on for that, but we didn't. But anyway, we move on. Füllkrug is the target man that we have been craving for all season. And that performance against Bournemouth may not only have given him a starting berth in the game against Liverpool next Sunday, it may also have given Graham Potter food for thought beyond this season as well. Now, if Potter had any inclination to perhaps sell Niclas Fullkrug at the end of this season, I do wonder whether that performance may have made Potter think again. Of course, it's not just based on one performance, but we've seen every time Füllkrug has come on the pitch, he's given us a focal point. He's given us something to aim for. He's given the opposition something to worry about. Now, we hear an awful lot of crap, don't we, on social media, that the player is frustrated and he's unsettled in London. Yet, his display on the pitch and his comments in the post-match interview suggests that the player himself wants to be at West Ham and has plenty to offer. He talks a good game. I guess you could argue all players would do that, but the way he talks and his manner on the pitch seems to suggest something different. He doesn't look like a player who's eager to get away from the club at the earliest opportunity. Niclas Fullkrug took his chance when offered to him, and he has tried to pay back a little bit of the £27 million transfer fee that we dished out for him in the summer. The way he took that header like a bullet. And I've got to be honest, I'm one of those fans who wasn't sure about Füllkrug when he arrived, you know, at the age and then looking at his injury record, etc. Even I've been quite skeptical. But like I said, players, you know, they don't go out looking to get injured. It's just unfortunate that Füllkrug has picked up two serious injuries in the same season. You could have a player that's £100 million or £10,000 that might get injured and maybe back after one day, back after a week, back after a month, back after a year. It's just unfortunate for him. What do I think? Do I think we should keep Füllkrug? I think he's an interesting prospect and a player that's clearly made West Ham come alive against Bournemouth on Saturday. Now, another player that is again talked about by the fans in different ways is, of course, young Brazilian Luis Guilherme. The jury is still out on him. And again, he was given a chance to shine. And this time, I think he did himself no harm at all with the cameo performance that he put in the latter stages of the game. He's got pace to burn. That's obvious. He's got pretty decent skill, pretty decent vision, but he is inexperienced. And if there's any criticism of his game against Bournemouth, it was that the effort that he tried to smash in, which ended up going to the side of the net, when he should have tried to look up and see what players were maybe waiting in the box in order to lay it across to them to maybe smash the ball into the net. He'll learn from that, though, and his performance was very encouraging. Now, that's two players that came in to West Ham United in the summer who Tim Steidten brought in. Add to that Aaron Wan-Bissaka. He didn't have a great game against Wolves during the week, but he back to his best again on Saturday. And then, of course, we've got Jean-Claude Todibo at the back, who just oozes class, doesn't he? And with Carlos Soler putting in a half-decent performance as well, did we get it a bit wrong with Tim Steidten or not? Anyway, or was it more down to the way Hunan Lopetegui managed these players rather than the players that we brought in? Still, for those West Ham fans who actually decided to stay until the end, the second half was the most entertaining for quite some time, and perhaps we should have held out for a win, like I said. But should we be celebrating a draw? Should we be sort of like patting ourselves on the back, given that it was just a draw against a mid-table Premier League team at home? Look, we've had a bad season. We all see that. So perhaps, given the position that we're in, then yes, I would say we should be celebrating. We should be celebrating the performance more than the result, because I think the second half performance was certainly something to hold on to, something to build on. It's the significance of the performance, to be quite honest with you. The way we played in the second half, the intensity, the directness, the faster movement of the ball, the fact that all of a sudden we weren't second to every ball in the first half. I mean, it was a forgetful first half. We were second to every ball. We were just slow. We were lackluster. We were sluggish. We seemed to have no ideas up front. And all of those changes came from Niclas Fullkrug's introduction to the game. But what it also did, was it raised the spirit of the fans. And we did just that. As soon as we saw ourselves getting back into the game, the fans started to sing, started to chant, started to get behind the team a little bit more. So what was disappointing for me was just that the number of fans who, first of all, didn't return to their seats for the second half. Okay, the first half was bad, but it was only 1-0. It's not as if we were losing by 3 or 4 goals. It was only 1-0. So it was a surprise that quite a lot of fans didn't return to their seats. And even when this continued throughout the second half, and even when we went 2-1 up on the 68th minute, fans were still streaming out of the stadium. And then when Bournemouth equalised on the 79th minute, yet even more fans were leaving. Now, we go on about the stadium not having an atmosphere. Well, we as fans are partly responsible for that as well. I've always maintained it's a bit of a catch-22 situation with the stadium atmosphere. Yes, we know about the issues that we have with the London Stadium not being, for football, etc., etc. We know all that. But at the same time, when we do have something to cheer about, you can hear the atmosphere rising in the stadium. And the atmosphere amongst the fans actually got better in the second half. And yet, the second half proved to be, the second half proved to be entertaining all the way through to the final whistle. And yet, when that final whistle blew, at a guess, there was probably about 2/3 of the fans left, maybe even less than that, to clap the players at the end of the game. Now, whilst I have to be careful not to criticize the fan base too much, and whilst I accept that maybe when it's a midweek game, late kickoff, it requires fans to be leaving early to catch their trains home, etc., etc. The game against Bournemouth was a Saturday afternoon kickoff. Sun was shining, and with the added time, even with the added time added onto the game finished before 5 o'clock. So there was no real rush to be leaving. Anyway, it's a bit of a bugbear of mine. Every fan's got a right to do what they want to do, but to actually see the game improving in the second half, to see what was happening on the pitch, raising the fan spirits, raising the player spirits, and yet not a lot of fans were left at the end of the game. Anyway, I digress. I enjoyed the second half, yet there were some performances overall which still could have been better. Alphonse Areola in goal, definitely messed up for their first goal, but that didn't stop him from pulling off some decent saves throughout the game. Kilman didn't really have the dominant defensive display at the back, and he always kind of looks a lot more comfortable when playing in the middle of a back three. Of course, we went with a back four on Saturday, which was a good tactic by Potter. Ollie Scholes, still very young, a very young talent, still learning his game. Didn't have the best of games, but he will get better in time. Souček and Alvarez were a little bit too quiet for me in the middle of the park, and they didn't have enough input from midfield. However, on the plus side, I've already mentioned, I thought Aaron Wan-Bissaka was back to, the kind of display that he's been putting in all season. I think Emerson coming on seemed to suggest he's still got a lot more to offer West Ham United. And then Jean-Claude Todibo, who I've already mentioned, continues to be so cool at the back. It's almost scary because you think, oh my God, one of these turns he makes, Cruyff turns he makes, is going to end up, letting him down, but it never does. And the player plays with a smile on his face. He's actually a very good footballer. And in the post-match interview on West Ham's official channel, Todibo said that when he was at Toulouse, he played in midfield, which is probably answers why he's so comfortable on the ball. So there were some good performances. Bowen got better in the game as the game developed when he went back to the right side of attack. And like I said, he didn't really impress too much when he led the line in the first half. And you could see in the first half, let's talk a little bit about the first half because it wasn't great. But Potter did try to make changes. He went with a 4-2-1 formation, and it kind of didn't work. There was no spark. Bowen led the line. Kudus was out on the right. Paqueta was playing more on the left. Souček was playing almost like a number 10. And then you had Alvarez and Ward-Prowse holding the midfield. And it just felt sluggish. And many fans have said on many, many occasions that having Ward-Prowse, Alvarez, and Souček in the middle of the park, there's no pace. It's too slow. It just doesn't work. And, they've got a good point in saying that. So when he changed it in the second half, it took 10 minutes for him to change it. But when he changed it, Potter, and he brought on Füllkrug and made other changes like Emerson coming on, etc., and Soler as well, a bit of an unsung hero, all of a sudden things started to look better. Soler is as a player, I guess, that maybe doesn't get as much praise as he should. He does get himself about. He's not the box-to-box midfielder I think we need, but he can certainly offer a little bit more than maybe the likes of maybe Ward-Prowse or Souček can offer. So I was impressed with his game plan in the second half. Soler, I thought he played well. So there are some bonuses. Kudus, again, like I said, he was industrious and he was brilliant in getting the ball to the byline and getting it across to Bowen for his goal. Still a little bit quiet though, Kudus. He did celebrate, but that was because Bowen ran to him to celebrate the cross that he put in more than anything. But still, he's industrious, but he's not the Kudus that we grew to love last season. Paqueta, when Füllkrug came on, had more freedom on the board to try and pick out those Hollywood passes that he likes to make, which comes off every once in a while. And when it does, we all applaud him. And as I already mentioned, I like what I saw with the likes of Guilherme, and most impressed with the big German. And then you kind of start looking towards the weekend and the game against Liverpool and ask whether Füllkrug will start. I'm not so sure. I think Potter is quite likely to go to a back three again or a back five again against Liverpool to try and stem the flow, the attacking flow that they have. So if he does go with a back five, and if he does want to play Füllkrug, it's going to be very interesting to see who in the starting lineup Potter is going to drop in order to accommodate a back five and in order to accommodate Füllkrug. But we'll worry about that later on in the week. Give me your thoughts on the game. Tell me what you think of how the game went. Do you agree with how the game sort of progressed? It got better as the game wore on. Füllkrug being man of the match for me. What about you? Who in your minds stood out as well? Thank you all for watching and listening. Like I said, if you're new to the channel, please do hit the like button. Really important to hit the like button. And if you like the content, please do become a subscriber of the channel as well. I'll be back with the West Ham Weekly on Monday night. But in the meantime, have a good rest of the day. The sun is still shining, and I'll see you all very soon.